the U.S. Marshal Service has a big problem. They may have billions of dollars of Bitcoin, but unfortunately, they're not 100% sure where it is, who has it, or how much they actually have. So is that incompetence, ignorance, corruption, or just plain it's a big club and we're not in it? Well, we're going to do our best to answer those questions. Let's dive into it. Here we go.
The feasibility of a Bitcoin reserve, you said that's being studied. It's one of the first things that's on the table here. What goes into that process? Is that something that would be standalone, or is that something that could potentially be tucked into, say, a sovereign wealth fund, which has been the speculation today on the heels of that executive order?
I guess it's possible that the sovereign wealth fund could decide that they want to make Bitcoin or digital assets part of its portfolio. You're going to have to ask the incoming Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick about that. The item that President Trump asked our working group on digital assets to study is whether it's feasible to create either a Bitcoin reserve or some sort of digital asset stockpile. And so we're going to be looking at that question. We haven't committed yet to doing it, but it's one of the first things we're going to be looking at.
Welcome back, everyone. While the majority of the crypto and Bitcoin space and influencers are focused on the SBR and, whether or not the U.S. is going to have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, trying to figure out which states are actually going to write the word Bitcoin in the bill versus the ones that are just looking for a strategic reserve of quote unquote digital assets, which essentially just means they're going to buy their own stable coins. Besides that stuff, what's really pressing and seemingly not too many people are talking about is the fact that the U.S. Marshal Service seems to be incompetent. Here's a tweet from Amuse. 5 days before Trump took office, Biden ordered the liquidation of $6 billion worth of Bitcoin to thwart David Sachs' plan for a Bitcoin reserve. Only problem was Biden's administration couldn't find it. Who has it? Now, in all fairness, that tweet is somewhat politically loaded. I know that we want to say that it's the Biden administration, but in reality, it's the U.S. Marshal Service, right? Regardless of which government, right? Regardless of whether it's the Biden administration, Trump administration, make a difference. U.S. Marshal Service. Okay, so that's the first point of this. But let's dive into this because this story is not so cut and dry. You'd think that this is possibly, some just blatant disorganization, but as we dive into this a little further, you guys are going to see this might be more a case of the U.S. Marshal Service not wanting to out one of their friends. According to sources, the U.S. Marshal Service didn't have adequate policies related to seized cryptocurrency storage, quantification, valuation, and disposal, and in some instances, guidance was conflicting. So how hard is it to see how much Bitcoin you have? It really isn't that difficult. So this type of statement actually makes the U.S. Marshal Service look more incompetent than anything else. And I just want to point out the irony of there's no structure in place to seize your assets, but that doesn't stop the powers that be from taking everything away from. It's like, we'll figure out what to do with the storage later. First, we're going to take your shit. That's the first thing, no matter what. So it doesn't matter if we have the correct facilities in place to document or categorize any of this stuff. What's certain is that we're taking your things away from you. So I just think that that's kind of funny. Anyways, moving on with this story. Now, the real crux of the matter is this. Who is helping the U.S. Marshal Service to categorize and to keep track of this missing Bitcoin? Maybe that's the key in the whole story. Here's a source that points to this. In November 2022, 5 months after the OIG report was published, USMS stated that it had lost control of 2 Ethereum wallets due to a software update. What? It is unclear if the private key is incorrect or the wallet malfunctioned, the agency said. The contractor will identify the issues and potentially open the wallet. Ah, the contractor. So there is somebody else involved. Interesting. If the wallet can't be opened, documentation of efforts taken to unlock or open the wallet will be provided. So Here's what we did. Here's what we tried. This shit don't work. It was unclear whether the issues with the Ethereum wallets had occurred before, during, or after the OIG audit. The OIG report itself makes no mention of mismanaged Ethereum wallets or missing ether. Before we blame everything on incompetence, it seems that the U.S. Marshal Service did in fact try or attempt to hire a contractor to help them with their crypto and Bitcoin seizings. So the USMS started looking into procurement in 2018 and first awarded the contract to crypto exchange BitGo. However, it was determined that the exchange did not meet the definition of a small business. The award then passed on to crypto custody firm Anchorage Digital in July 2021. Yet Anchorage was also found too large to meet the small business criteria. So who was it? The agency switched gears in 2024, awarding two different contracts. The first for the management of so-called Class 1 cryptocurrencies, meaning coins supported on centralized exchanges and in cold storage wallets, and a second for Class 2 to 4 cryptocurrencies, coins that don't meet Class 1 requirements. So who got awarded that Class 1 contract, you may be wondering? Well, it appears it was Coinbase that got it. While the Class 2 to 4 contract went in October to Command Services and Support, CMDSS, the technology service provider with experience working with the Department of Justice. Digging into CMDSS, I found it a little peculiar that these guys got awarded this, because the thing is that even though CMDSS does have a history with the Department of Defense and the Department of Justice, they appear to be an IT firm. So an IT services and consulting firm. And if we take a look at the services that they offer, none of their services actually have anything to do with Bitcoin or crypto. So why was this company awarded anything in relation to this, you may ask? And this, to me, is where we get into the whole, it's a big club and we're not in it. What's strange about CMDSS is that they aren't licensed with the SEC or a member of FINRA. And the other piece to it is this. CMDSS has a former USMC official as one of their higher up employees. The idea of the big club and you're not in it starts to take a little more shape. Sources are indicating that there's a lot of personal trust in the leadership of the awarded entity, which is CMDSS, to figure it out and not make the USMS look bad. So I think that at this point, the damage is already done. The U.S. Marshal Service already seems either incompetent or incapable. So I don't really know what hanging on to this CMDSS company is really going to do for the perception of this whole thing. Now, this kind of brings into question bringing in the correct people to do the correct job. And unfortunately, what people sometimes do not want to admit is that you're not necessarily going to hire the best company for the job. You're going to hire, in some cases, possibly the best person or company for you that will make you look best. In this case, we've got a former U.S. Marshal that is working at CMDSS, right? So the idea that they got this contract to find out what has happened, that's not unusual. And of course, right, if you're the U.S. Marshal Service, you'd like to imagine that one of your previous team players that's now gone over into the private sector is probably going to be friendly to you and maybe try to shield you from some of the negative press. I think it's obvious that we can't trust the U.S. Marshal Service, but I mean, that's besides the point. I think the real big picture here is this. While influencers are trying to pump up the idea that the US government is going to do a strategic Bitcoin reserve, or that individual states are going to do a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and that this is somehow going to be this gigantic, amazing thing for Bitcoin. I can't help but point to stories like this where you've got the U.S. Marshal Service, right, that's obviously very willing to take away your Bitcoin and your shitcoins, but they have absolutely no infrastructure or plan on how to hang on to it. Now, of course, the 5D chess argument to this whole thing is that, oh no, they were just secretly, they're the secret whale that's dumping on the market and suppressing the Bitcoin price. I don't believe that. It's a fun story, but I don't believe it. Look, I think oftentimes we chalk up some government incompetence to this kind of like superior evil nefariousness, and that is just not the case, right? These are individuals following their individual incentives. From what it looks like you've got the U.S. Marshal Service that clearly hired the wrong frickin' people to take care of this. Okay. This CMDSS company, which is just an IT infrastructure company. In my eyes, like it's just, hey, we hired our friends to do this because we knew that if something went wrong, our friends wouldn't throw us under the bus. And that's exactly what they're doing. CMDSS is not throwing them under the bus. They're desperately trying to hold this together. But at the same time, where'd that Bitcoin gone? Where'd it go? Anyways, guys, yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about today. I will catch you on the next one.